Workplace disruption management during a pandemic. Introduction.
This research discusses the disruption that occurs in the workplace during a pandemic. First, what is a pandemic? A pandemic is a global event in which an outbreak is no longer contained in a specific geographical region, such as MERS pandemic, SARS pandemic, and the current COVID-19 pandemic. What are we trying to solve with this research? In this research, we are trying to illustrate how companies can be impacted by the disruption of the workplace and eventually how they can handle such a disruption to ensure business continuity. Research questions. This research focuses on two main questions. The first one is, how much of an impact from a pandemic would disrupt the workplace? The second question is, how to minimize the impact of the pandemic situation on a business and employee productivity.
Literature review.
For our literature review, we reviewed 5 relevant articles that were conducted in the past. Those articles are all talking about workplace disruptions management. Some of them talking about workplace disruption management. Some of them are relating to a real pandemic that has occurred in the past. And our research gap here is the first research gap is that we don't have many pieces of research. So what we can say that there have not been many researches that have been done in the past, especially in Malaysia, in telco companies and insurance companies and logistic companies, which this research will be talking about. And the third gap is that we don't have not much data about global pandemic, especially when we talk about the Spanish flu. And the third gap is that there has not been a global pandemic that has already affected the workplace like COVID-19 did, as we all can see it's happening right now. And our comparison analysis is that, during our review, we found that the article suggests that better plans, like we can see here, better plan can save the company to have a workplace disruption that can affect the business, with just minimal impact, And in the other hand, since our article here is talking about COVID-19, and other articles have not been talking about it because those articles were published before the occurrence of COVID-19. And here our conceptual framework, here we have this independent variable, which is the workplace disruption, which affects those dependent variable, the remote work, the job performance, and the company revenue. So basically, this is all we have for our literature review, and the next will be the methodology.
Methodology.
In methodology, we are selecting qualitative data collections as our core analysis. There are 3 different types: secondary data analysis, interviews, and focus group. It will be discussed further in the next few pages. Before getting a report's finding and discussions, we should have coming out a research questions. Then creating research directive, literature review, and finding the research gap, followed by identifying themes and creating conceptual work. When all this is established, we can start to do data collections via focus group, interviews, and secondary data analysis. With all the data that we have, we can perform data evaluations, analysis. With the help of insight from data evaluations and data analysis, lastly, we are able to generate the report's finding, discussions, and maybe it could be beneficial for the future work. The data sources we use to analyze go across 3 different industries, such as telco, insurance, and logistics. The reason why we are selecting these 3 different industries because most of the department in telco able to perform work from home because they are being digitalized, where insurance and logistics will need to work from office or even work from the field, such as meeting clients or driving a trucks to send goods to the destinations. So with this different type of industry, we are able to have more general output. For the research reliability, we must always talk about multiple triangulations. This research applies 3 different data collections methods with 3 different industry and in 4 different type of employee classes. This is because it will be giving more holistic view of situations. For researcher, we have always need to have self-conscious research design. It's being versatile about how the research is being carried out and open for changes in the design. This is a focus group survey. We break into 3 different categories: company perspective, individual perspective, and the mixed perspective. Most of the question is mainly talking about how the impact has been done to your work, to your office, to your organization, and to yourself as an individual. And how could this affect you? And what is the solution? What is the suggestions to improve your current situations in order to adapt the new normal?
Findings.
So onto the findings. The first expected findings from this research is that we expect to see all nodes of supply chain being disrupted, which will eventually lead to exponential delays in them providing their services, because of all nodes getting disrupted, right? And it is caused by 2 factors. The first one would be closure of non-essential working institutions. During lockdown, they cannot work, so it will affect other companies that depend on them as well, sort of creating an inter workplace disruption between this community. And the second factor would be social distancing practices. Workers that have to work in confined spaces, maintenance workers, cannot work normally like usual. They have to adhere to some sort of new SOPs, and these are the ones that create some sort of disruption in their workplace. And it will impact the workplace somehow, by having a poor communication and coordination between employees, because you cannot see them more often, cannot discuss with them physically, and it will eventually lead to lower productivity and also loss of revenue to the business. So we have to sort of create a policy to combat this, mitigate this effect. The first one is the workplace working hours. It shall be the same, but you would have the option to mix and match between how many hours you want to work from home, to work at the office, things like that. And thus, there's a need for a remote working policy to ensure and maintain the work-life balance of the employees. But at the same time, we also have the business efficiency maintained at a good pace or good rate, right? And last but not least, workplace safety and healthcare. We need a comprehensive insurance for these employees in case anything happens to them, COVID or whatever, and also an action plan in case something happened in the workplace, somebody get infected, something like that.
Discussion and conclusion.
We have to mention about the remote work. It's the most important, especially for telecommunication company, IT company, and a management. They have like to implement, and they have like to give this flexibility to the employee for flexibility of, especially for work location, or for the duration of work per day. Especially this flexibility will have like effect on the productivity. So, and the most major concern for the management is like productivity, and they have to ensure that their project proceed and progress during the pandemic. And especially, and we can move now for communication. And it's like communication is very, very important, especially in this time, and especially in those like pandemic situation. So because like the employee and management or employers, they don't meet physically, so they have like to build network communication that like adapt with this kind of situation, and they have like to secure their flow of information flow information because like most of or many of the employee they work from different location. It's not really secure, so they have to make some new policy and they have to teach their employee information security, and they have to manage their resources. Now we can like discuss about the policy and the action like should take, especially after the opening of the workplace, and they have like to make sure about the safety and this, especially in the environment work safety, with implementing some like new policy and some like and that some policy and some actions, and especially for some like some business and some company they have they required to have like some travel business, and they should like implement some travel policy as quarantine or special, or for example they can everyone who has to travel for the business or other any other purpose, they probably they have to stay for 14 days working from home, so could they prevent any spread of infection in the work environment. Our research focused especially for the influenza infection and the impact on workplace. The point here, why the influenza is like the main concern for the researchers and more the workplace. This because like the influenza, the spread of influenza infection, it's raised dramatically and insane. So it's to control it. It's really difficult. It's spread and it's affected in the workplace environment. So based on our collected data, we studied the impact of the pandemic on workplace, and we provide some solution how to minimize this impact and how to implement some crisis plan management during the pandemic and maybe after they start opening their workplace. So in this case, it's like a very main concern, a very big concern for many employees, many company. If the COVID-19 doesn't like the world, they didn't provide any solution to stop the spreading, do we able to continue work remotely for long period, and this will have some impact on the business for long duration. These like questions maybe in the future researchers have like to respond and answer and go deeply in these problems. Thank you so much for your attention, and hope you enjoyed our presentation. Thanks so much.